My name is Mark. I'm 26 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I've been here for 3 years now, and in that time, I've learned something funny about life. Big changes don't always come from big events. Sometimes, it's the small things, the kind you almost miss, that change your days the most. This story isn't about moving to a new city. It isn't about starting a new job or falling in love. It's about a season in my life when little surprises filled my days, and how they made me see things differently. It started one chilly morning in March. I had just begun a new habit, walking before work. I used to rush through mornings, wake up, grab coffee, sit in front of my laptop. But that day, I woke up at 6:30, pulled on my hoodie, and stepped outside. The air was crisp. The streets were quiet. I walked down my block, past a bakery where the smell of bread drifted out into the cold air. Half a block later, I saw an older man sitting on a bench. He had a small dog, brown with white spots. The man lifted his coffee cup toward me and said, "Morning." I said, "Morning" back. The dog wagged its tail as if it had been waiting for me. I smiled the whole way home. That's how it began, my new mornings. A simple walk, a quiet hello, something small, but it made my day lighter. 2 weeks later, I discovered something else. There's a small coffee shop near my apartment called Bean and Leaf. I usually just grab a latte and leave, but that morning I stayed. I sat near the window with my coffee, watching people walk past in the rain. Then I noticed a notebook on the table, a black spiral notebook left behind by someone. I opened it slowly, feeling curious. Inside, there were short notes, messages from strangers. One page said, "Today is hard, but I believe tomorrow will be better." Another said, "I met a new friend here. We laughed about nothing for an hour. Thank you." And another, "If you're reading this, smile. You're alive. That's something." I looked around. The barista saw me holding the notebook and smiled. "Yeah," she said. "It's our community book. People leave messages. Sometimes poems, sometimes drawings." I wrote something too. "Thanks for the reminder. Life isn't perfect, but coffee helps." I laughed at myself, but it felt good. In April, Portland rain was steady and endless. One night, I missed my usual bus and had to wait in the drizzle. When the bus finally came, I got on, wet and tired. I sat near the back and noticed a little girl with her mom. The girl wore bright yellow rain boots. She was drawing on the foggy bus window with her finger. Circles, stars, squiggly lines. Then she wrote the word, H-I. I smiled and drew a smiley face on the glass next to it. She giggled, looked at her mom, and then drew a heart. It lasted only a few minutes, until they got off at the next stop. But the whole ride home, I couldn't stop smiling. By May, the mornings were warmer. One Saturday, I went to the park with a book. I sat on a bench, opened my novel, and started reading. After a while, a man sat down at the other end of the bench. He had gray hair, glasses, and a calm voice. "You read a lot?" he asked. "A little," I said. "When I can." He nodded. "Me too. What's your book?" We talked for 20 minutes, about books, about travel, about how spring in Portland was the best time of year. When he left, he said, "See you around, reader." I didn't even get his name. But after that, I started looking for him every weekend. And almost every time, he was there, on another bench, with another book. We weren't close friends, but he became part of my Saturdays. A park bench friend. June came, and with it, warmer evenings. One Tuesday, I went to the grocery store after work. I was tired and in no mood for shopping. But while I walked down the produce aisle, I heard someone singing softly. It was a young man stocking apples. His voice was deep, warm, and smooth, like a radio song. He wasn't singing loudly, just humming and letting the words slip out. But people noticed. A woman by the bananas clapped softly when he finished his verse. He laughed and said, "Sorry, I forget I'm in public sometimes." I left the store with my groceries and a melody stuck in my head. And for some reason, dinner tasted better that night. By July, I realized something. Every week, something small was happening to me. A stranger's smile, a short conversation, a little gift from the world. None of them were dramatic. None of them changed my life completely. But together, they made my days brighter. I started writing them down in a notebook, my own version of the coffee shop journal. I called it Small Surprises. Here are a few entries. 7/12. A barista drew a cat on my coffee cup. Made me laugh. July 19th. Saw two kids trying to sell lemonade in the rain. Nobody bought any. So I bought 3 cups. Sour but funny. July 28th. A neighbor left free books in a box outside. I took one. Inside was a note. Enjoy this story. By September, my notebook was almost full. One evening, I flipped through it and read the pages. I realized something important. I had spent so much time in the past waiting for big moments, graduations, job offers, big trips. But the truth was, my real life was made of these little things. A dog's wagging tail, a girl's rain boot drawings, a stranger's song in a grocery store. These were the moments that gave color to my days, and I had almost missed them until I started noticing. In October, the rain returned. I was back at Bean and Leaf, the coffee shop with the community notebook. I flipped it open and saw a fresh page. I wrote, asterisk, I used to think happiness was a big event. But this year, I learned it's small. It's coffee in the rain. It's a hello from a stranger. It's a simple walk in the morning. Don't wait for big things. Look for the small surprises. They're everywhere. Asterisk. I closed the notebook, finished my coffee, and walked home in the drizzle. The air smelled like wet leaves, and I felt at peace. One chilly November afternoon, my bike chain slipped while I was riding home from the library. I stopped on the sidewalk, hands already cold, trying to fix it. A man in a red jacket walked by. He didn't know me. He didn't even stop to ask. He just crouched down, pulled a small tool from his pocket, and said, "Let me help." 2 minutes later, the chain was back in place. I said, "Thank you so much. I owe you." He smiled, shook his head, and said, "Nah, you'll help someone else someday." Then he walked away, just like that. It was such a small moment, but it stayed with me. Not because of the bike, but because of the kindness. In December, I was at the library, working on my laptop. I realized I had no pen to write down some notes. I sighed and looked around. At the table next to me, a student noticed. Without a word, she slid a blue pen across the table. I used it for an hour. When I tried to give it back, she waved her hand. "Keep it," she said. It was just a pen, cheap, plastic, ordinary. But I still keep it on my desk, because it reminds me of how simple generosity can be. One icy morning in January, I was carrying 2 bags of groceries home. One bag ripped open on the sidewalk. Apples rolled everywhere. Before I could react, 2 teenagers walking by ran after them. They chased my apples down the street, laughing, and handed them back to me like it was the funniest game in the world. I laughed too. I couldn't help it. They waved and disappeared around the corner. I walked home with a lighter heart and bruised apples that somehow tasted sweeter. In February, while waiting for the bus, I saw a man with a guitar. He wasn't performing for money. He wasn't even facing the crowd. He just played softly to himself, simple chords, a quiet song. The air was cold, the bus was late, but nobody complained. We all just stood there, listening. When the bus finally arrived, someone clapped. The man smiled shyly and whispered, "Thanks." That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Music can turn waiting into living." By March, A full year had passed since I began noticing these small surprises. On my birthday, I went to my favorite diner. I ordered pancakes, nothing special. But when the server brought my plate, there was a single candle on top. She said, "Your friend called ahead. Told us it's your birthday." I didn't know who had done it. Maybe my coworker, maybe my neighbor. But I didn't need to know. I blew out the candle, made a wish, and smiled. Now, sitting here and writing, I see the pattern. A year of ordinary days. A year of tiny moments. The bike chain, the pen, the apples, the music, the candle. None of them were planned. None were big. But together, they formed a kind of story, a soft reminder that life is always offering little gifts. You just have to notice them. April arrived with its usual Portland rain. One afternoon, I left the office and realized I had forgotten my umbrella. The sky opened suddenly, and within minutes, I was soaked. I ducked into the doorway of a shop to wait. A woman standing next to me looked at my dripping hair and laughed softly. "You didn't check the forecast, huh?" Before I could answer, she handed me a small, bright green umbrella. "Take it," she said. "I have another at home." I tried to protest, but she pressed it into my hand and stepped out into the rain without it. I stood there stunned, holding the green umbrella, watching her walk away. That umbrella is still in my closet. I've used it many times since. Every time I open it, I think of her. In May, I was walking through downtown when I saw something strange. A piano sitting on the sidewalk, right outside a bookstore. There was a sign on it that said, "Free to play." People walked past quickly, heads down. Nobody wanted to be the first. I stopped, touched the keys, and pressed one softly. It sounded a little out of tune, but it was beautiful in its own way. So I sat down and played a simple melody. Nothing special, just a song I remembered from childhood. When I finished, I looked up. 3 people were standing nearby, smiling. One of them clapped. A little boy said, "Do it again." I laughed and walked away, but my heart was light for hours. One warm June night, I was walking home late. The streets were quiet, except for one man sitting under a streetlight. He looked tired, his backpack beside him. As I passed, he said, "Hey, do you have the time?" I told him. He nodded, then said, "You know, sometimes I wonder if anyone ever notices the stars anymore." I stopped, looked up, and saw them, tiny points of light between the city clouds. "Yeah," I said, "they're still there." We didn't talk much more, but as I walked home, I kept looking up. It reminded me of being a kid, staring at the night sky and believing it was endless. In July, I took the train to visit a friend in Seattle. On the seat next to mine, I found another forgotten notebook, this one smaller, with doodles on the cover. Inside were half-written stories. One was about a girl who lived in a lighthouse. Another was about a man who wanted to bake the world's biggest loaf of bread. The handwriting was messy, playful, alive. At the end of the notebook, there was a single unfinished sentence. And then, when he finally opened the door, no ending, just that. I smiled, closed the notebook, and handed it to the conductor so maybe it would find its way back. But that night, I kept thinking about the unfinished story. Maybe we don't always need endings. Sometimes it's enough just to imagine what comes next. In August, the same 2 kids I had seen the year before were back, selling lemonade on the corner near my apartment. This time, the sun was bright and hot. I bought a cup. The older kid remembered me. "You're the guy who bought 3 cups in the rain last year." We all laughed. The lemonade was still sour, but this time it tasted perfect. Looking back, I saw how these little moments kept weaving into my life, like threads in a quiet tapestry. The umbrella, the piano, the streetlight stars, the unfinished notebook, the lemonade stand. None of them were planned. All of them were fleeting. But together, they shaped my year into something I could never have predicted. One crisp September morning, I checked my mailbox and found a postcard with no return address. On the front was a picture of the Oregon coast. On the back, just a short note. Keep noticing. The world is full of small surprises. No name. No clue. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was a stranger who somehow knew me. I'll never know. But I pinned that postcard to the corkboard above my desk. It felt like a quiet gift from the universe. In October, I went for a walk in the park and heard music again. This time, a small local band playing under the trees. Families sat on blankets. Kids danced barefoot in the grass. I stood at the back, hands in my pockets, just listening. The band wasn't famous. Their songs were simple, almost raw, but the joy was real. I realized I didn't need to be at a huge stadium or pay for expensive tickets. The music I needed was right there, free, soft, open to everyone. In November, right before Thanksgiving, I was standing in a long grocery store line with a frozen turkey in my cart. The woman behind me looked tired. She had only 2 items, a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. I let her go ahead. She looked at me like I had given her something far greater than a few minutes of time. She said, "Thank you. You just saved my evening." It was such a tiny act, but it reminded me how easy kindness can be. In December, on the last day of the year, I woke up early and walked to the river. The city was still quiet. The air was cold. I sat on a bench and watched the sky change colors, gray to pink, pink to gold. No music, no people, no sound except the river moving slowly. It felt like the whole year was whispering goodbye. I thought about everything. The umbrella, the apples, the music at the bus stop, the piano on the street, the postcard with no name. 100 little things, woven together into something bigger. And in that silence, I realized happiness had never been far away. It had been in front of me all along, in moments I almost missed. Now it's January again. A new year. The rain is back, the streets are wet, and the bakery on the corner still smells like bread. But I walk through the days differently now, because I know that any moment, a smile, a song, a kind word, can be the surprise that makes my whole day brighter. I don't wait for big changes anymore. I look for the small ones, and I write them down, one by one, filling the pages of my notebook. A quiet record of an ordinary life, made extraordinary by details. Remember, life doesn't have to be big to be beautiful. Sometimes the smallest things are the ones you carry with you the longest. So tomorrow, when you step outside, slow down. Look around. Notice the small surprises. They're already waiting for you.